even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, where do we find you today?
Winchester, Massachusetts. Getting ready to go to North Andover, Massachusetts to watch a Hockey East game between Merrimack and Northeastern.
And which is an underrated arena. Very loud that place can be when it's packed, Pierre.
It's the old Boston Garden.
Yep. So that should be a good game. The Hockey East playoffs starting up tonight. I'll be focusing on your game there and also on UMass and Vermont. We'll see what happens with that. But we are going to talk some Winnipeg Jets shortly with our good friend Dan Robertson, who, of course, for our Montreal listeners are familiar with him when he used to do play-by-play for TSN 690 for the Canadians there. He now does it on the radio in Winnipeg, or on TV, rather, in Winnipeg, and does a great job there. But before we get to the Jets, Pierre, just your impressions, anything stand out from last night?
Montreal's first line was really good. Brady Tkachuk's start in Philadelphia was outstanding. So were the Senators. I'd give him a lot of credit back-to-back. Winnipeg's power play is lethal, and their top line, led by Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, is really good. And you know, when you look at it, adding Shen and adding Tanev to Winnipeg, you watched that game of the Rangers last night. Shen made a big impact. He's going to make a big difference there. So there's a lot going on there. I mean, Winnipeg to me is good. And then obviously you go out west, and Anaheim got crushed pretty good. Not surprisingly, but there's San Jose's not winning a lot. Some of those teams out west, I mean, you can stockpile some points if you're paying attention.
Well, you know, I was obviously focused on the Bruins and Panthers there, Pierre, and credit to the Bruins, a gutsy win amidst all the changes they've had. That's now 2 straight wins since the deadline after losing all their starters, their longtime veteran players, led by Brad Marchand there. Brad Marchand was in the arena for this one. But, you know, it got me thinking, and we were kind of talking about this a bit off the air earlier today, Pierre. When you look around the league right now, right, and you're looking at some of the teams that maybe, and not that I'm saying it's justified that they are writing them off, but maybe teams could overlook. Who are some of the teams that you look at that could be potentially overlooked down the stretch, but could really cause some problems for teams who are trying to really make it into the playoffs or position themselves in the playoffs?
Good question. Boston would be one of them. The Rangers would be one of them. The Islanders could be one of them in the East. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't like Columbus's start last night. I thought they were terrible. They were down 3-0 in New Jersey. Yep. Then they fought their way back, but they didn't have a good game. You know, it's almost like they had gotten comfortable after their blowout win against the Rangers on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But Boston, Rangers, those would be troublesome teams, I think. Out west, you know, nobody knows what's going to go on in Vancouver. I watched them with Montreal last night. They all said the right things after the game. Well, you know, got Calgary coming up. We played relatively well. I was really disappointed. They had no plan for Suzuki, for Caulfield, and Slavkovsky. They had zero plan. Mm-hmm. They can say they had a plan, and if they did, that's great, but they didn't execute it. Yeah. So the West is kind of different because I'm expecting Anaheim to cause some problems. I am. I'm expecting Utah to cause some problems because I think they can. Minnesota is going to probably be a playoff team, even though they're concerned about their injury situation.
That was a gutsy win for them, though, last night.
It was very gutsy, but they're especially against Colorado is obviously really good. They're concerned about their injury situation in Minnesota. I can tell you that.
Yeah. The other team I look at, Pierre, and you may disagree with me, but I thought maybe they would have the potential to be that sort of pesky overlooked team is the San Jose Sharks, just because they're so young. They're just playing carefree. They're out there learning on the job. And sometimes that can lead to, you know, them, what's the word I'm looking for? Overachieving, I guess, would be the word. And yet, like you just said to start this off, I haven't seen that sign yet that they could do that. I saw it earlier in the season, but I'm not seeing it right now.
I think they're fatigued a little bit too. You know, you look at the trade deadline, they moved some players out. Yep. I think they're tired. You know, you get beat down enough and you're a young kid. Look, Macklin Celebrini is 18 years old.
We always forget that. I know.
You know, he's 18 years old. Will Smith's 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how would BC be if they had Will Smith right now? How would BU be if they had Macklin Celebrini right now? So these guys are playing up a serious weight class or two, and they're targeted every game.
Yep.
Like they're getting beat down every game. That's a hard way to play.
And traveling a lot more than they were used to in college.
The Western teams, talk to anybody that's either played or coached in the West and then have come East and either played or coached in the East. It's like two different leagues.
Yep.
It really is.
I want to get back to the Canadians, Pierre. So they go into Seattle tonight. They have a chance to close off with a win there, but obviously on the back-to-back there. Is Seattle a team that could cause some issues for people?
I haven't seen that. At all. Okay. You know, I was looking just at their center ice position. So you go Matty Beniers, good, really good player, but is he really a number one? Chandler Stevenson's playing as a 2. Is Chandler really a 2? Shane Wright's playing as a 3.
Yep.
You know, so you look at it and you're like, okay, just down the middle, where do they slot against most of the teams? I think Matt Beniers is a really good player, but in a perfect world, he's an ideal 2. He's he's a lot like their general manager in Seattle. He's a lot like Ronnie Francis. So I think that's a bit of an issue for them. Their defense, when you do it and you look at it, they're a team that can be cycled against a lot, and a lot of teams manufacture offense off the cycle because it's too hard to score off the rush. That's a bit of a problem right now for them. So I don't see them being like that.
I'm totally in agreement with you. And on that note, would you agree with me that this is a pivotal off season coming up for that franchise?
Oh, I thought last season was pivotal, especially when they opened up the pocketbook and went after Brandon Montour and Chandler Stevenson.
Right.
So they brought in 2 guys and spent a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And they were counting on those. And I think both of them had relatively good years.
Yeah.
I mean, for Montour, it's a lot different. You're not on a Stanley Cup winning team, just like for Chandler. He's not on a Stanley Cup. Seattle's not that. They're not that.
Yeah.
And so it's probably a bit frustrating for them. Jared McCann's now playing as a third-line player there. I think he's a bit better than that. Mm-hmm. So they, again, with Seattle, I try to watch them a lot just because I like Ronnie, and I really, you know, when you win with somebody, you care about them. Yeah. And so I like Ronnie, and I've known Dan Bilesma a long time. I'd like to see them do well there, but I'm not sure the players are good enough, for the franchise is deep enough right now with players.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's, and I know this is such a cliche term, it doesn't seem though like there is an identity there right now. There's not a sort of direction. Okay, who are we? Where do we want to go with this? And I think they really need to, in the offseason, Pierre, not necessarily make a splash again, like you pointed out that they did last offseason, but really make strategic, you know, niche little moves, like plug little holes there in the lineup. It doesn't have to be, you know, sexy on the market and make a big splash or anything. Like I said, it's just got to fill your certain needs and start to bring it all together. That's where I see them having to go if they're going to start to really pick up traction.
Yeah, that's fair. And they also have to develop players in the American Hockey League in Coachella Valley, where their farm team is, in the desert in California. So no, they got work to do. But this will be an interesting offseason for them in terms of the debrief with ownership, from the management to the coaching staff to the scouting staff. I'd be really interested to be part of that.
Yeah.
I don't know how nasty it would be, or if it'd be calm and focus and you know, passion's a good thing in those meetings, but I just wonder what that meeting would be like, because I think the expectation was for them to take another step this year, and that has not happened.
All right, I want to go back east quick before we're going to have Dan here in a few minutes, and I want to go back to that Bruins-Panthers game, Pierre, and the big thing coming out of that game is the Zadorov fight with Bennett, where Zadorov basically jumped Bennett after Bennett cross-checked him in the face. And, you know, Bennett was just being his usual pest self the whole game, and he lost it there. But just quickly, and we got Dan now, but I wanted you to think about your thoughts on that, and how I told you earlier that there's some in the Boston media comparing that moment to when Jason Varitek and Alex Rodriguez went at it in the year that the Red Sox broke the curse. And I'm like, let's pump the brakes. I mean, it is blowing up all day, Pierre. That's all anybody's talking about here. But we'll get back to that after we talk to our good friend Dan Robertson from TSN in Winnipeg. Joining us here right now on the eye test. I think we've got him. There we go.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Dan.
How are you?
How are you, sir?
Good to
see you.
Very well. Good to see you guys too.
Good to see you. How's things out in Winnipeg? How's the weather?
Not bad. It's sunny. We'll say that, and it's just a little over freezing. So you know what? The days are a little longer, so I think we can all kind of be a little more optimistic right now.
Yep.
You got it rocking out there with your Winnipeg Jets. I watched your game with the Rangers last night. Power play is unbelievable. Who's running that power play?
It is Davis Payne,
So
and it's
Davis ran the power play in Ottawa, and he was really good running the power play in Ottawa. It was one of the bright spots they had in Ottawa. So
and
Davis is an old Boston Bruin. And,
right.
Here's my question for you, Dan. Was I wrong? Did I see empty seats in that building again last night?
I didn't really notice. I saw somebody, Mike McIntyre from one of the papers here, tweeted something, and I just looked at it sort of glancingly that it was close to a sellout and that numbers are up a little bit this year. But you know what? With a team as good as it is, you would think it would be sold out every night. If it's not on Friday, then there's really something going on because that's like a kind of a mini playoff game with Dallas coming into town, really.
Agreed.
Dan, quickly before we get into more details on the team, just your initial reaction to the NHL trade deadline and how the Jets did.
Well, I think they did what they could. They took bigger swings than the players that they got. Of course, they got Brandon Tanev and Luke Shen.
Yep.
And so that helps. You know what? I was told that by people who would know that they went after Brock Nelson and that he just didn't want to play in Canada. So whether that was in Winnipeg or Toronto, not that he didn't like Canada, but just the political situation right now, he wasn't happy with it. And the person who told me that, I would believe them. So, you know, I actually had the an interview with Kevin Cheveldayoff before the game in Carolina and said to him, for those Jets fans who would say, where's our Mikko Rantanen, where's our Charlie Coyle or Brock Nelson, what would you say? And I wasn't accusing him of not getting the job done. It's just to give him an opportunity to just say why if he wanted to. And you can't really divulge, right, what you wanted to do or tried to do. But we know that the Jets are hamstrung. Not a lot of players want to come here. That can be an issue. But on the positive side, Tanev, we know what he is. He's what he's always been. He's hard driving and aggressive. He'll bump the goalie from now and then. He'll drive the net. He's not going to be a big producer, but that's not what they were looking for. He's kind of helped reshape the fourth line that has Morgan Barron in the middle of it for the time being anyway. And I follow on the right. And then Luke Shen last night, he threw some big hits. He killed penalties well. He had a couple of disconnects with the puck, trying to feed his wingers, but he hadn't been skating for a week. So it made them tougher and it made them a little, you know, gristlier, I guess, when the playoffs come around. Did they get the number 2 center that I thought they needed? No, but there's only so many of them, as Kevin Cheveldayoff reminded me. So overall, I think it helped and wasn't probably the home run they were looking for, but pretty good in the end, I think.
Dan, you just talked about, you know, the players. They got a lot of good players there. I think Kevin's done a fantastic job. Before you came on, I told Jimmy yesterday that I think Kevin Cheveldayoff should be in the Manager of the Year discussion. I really do.
Yeah.
But I was curious because you're so close to it and you're such a good source on this. How did Kyle Connor feel when he came back from the Four Nations and not playing in the final game?
Well, he said all the right things, and you know what? I look back at it, not to change the subject, but the fact that he wasn't dressed, and you know they had players there who just couldn't get it done, and you know who would you rather have? With no disrespect to Chris Kreider, I mean Kyle's an elite goal scorer, so I think it stung him on some level. I think you'd have to be silly to think otherwise because he's such a competitive guy. I don't know. It's sort of like when Scheifele wasn't selected for the Four Nations for Canada, people were saying, is that driving him all year? And I thought, well, I don't really know about that. I think he's going to play his best anyway. And I think Kyle probably get over it pretty quickly, but I say get over it, but he'll no doubt file that away. I think that's what the best athletes do. They kind of have a long memory when it comes to any shuns, whether they're perceived or not. So he got over it quickly if it was really bothering him. It hasn't affected his game, and that's really what matters.
Hey, Jimmy, just one more. Which one? Yeah. I think one of the great assets on your team, Dan, is Gabe Velarde.
Yeah.
I don't think that kid's getting nearly – and he plays obviously on the line with Scheifele and with Kyle Connor. Why isn't he getting more love around the league?
I don't know. I know if you talk to Winnipeg fans, and there's that maybe a bit of a small town complex where they don't think anybody or the team itself isn't getting enough recognition. Maybe it's because he's not he's not an end-to-end guy. He's not going to pull you out of your seat like Kyle Connor, but he has a set of hands that not that many players do. And it's really been a revelation to me. I can remember when I called Canadians games and I saw him the first few times and I thought, couldn't really get a read on him and thought, okay, this guy was a high pick. I knew that. But he's found the right spot. He hit 60 points last night. He's at 27 goals. He's a wizard on the power play. I'm liking it when he lines up at the goalpost. It's like somebody posting up in the NBA. You get the ball into him, and he kind of can dictate from there. He can score, he can deke, he can set it up, and he's just kind of quietly fit into that line, which I probably am biased, but it's as good as any line in the league. And I think he's an RFA at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken. So they'll happily pay him. I mean, he's really been something, and they've mostly been healthy all year long, just a couple of games here and there for Scheifele. That's a big thing too. Velarde has suffered injuries this year. He hasn't missed a game, but it's a great point, Pierre. I hope people take the chance to really watch him closely. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's great with the puck.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you look back on that deal, Dan, and look at it as like, maybe this is one of Kevin Cheveldayoff's best trades, if not the best?
It's right there. I mean, he's had some dandies where he got rid of Andrew Kopp and got a big haul back for it.
Right.
But I think, you know what, if Rasmus Kupari is able to develop into a steady forward, and he's taken some steps this year, then that would make it even better. He's got great speed. He can shoot the puck, but he doesn't have great offensive awareness, I would say, for the game. And right now he's being pushed out. He's hurt. He is going to come back soon. He was on concussion protocol. But Morgan Barron, I think, is ahead of him on the depth chart. They're trying to teach him how to play center. But it's a long way of saying it is one of his very best. And it's, as you see, Velarde continues to develop. That's such a big part of it. What they do lack, though, the player that they traded, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he didn't want to be here, so it doesn't really matter. But they're still trying to find that really good second-line centerman, with due respect to Vlad Namestnikov.
Okay, this is the hardest question I'm going to ask you all game, all day long. Connor Hellebuyck is going to win another Vezina trophy. Playoffs really haven't been his thing. Is it more the team or is it him?
I think if you look back to last year's first round, it was interesting. He, after the series, said, I didn't play that poorly. And, the numbers would tell you the complete opposite. They played poorly as a team defensively against Colorado. I mean, if you watch it again, even the first game they won, I think it was 7-6 or something like that.
It was
just very uncharacteristic. And I thought it was a good coaching approach by Jared Bednar to kind of mix things up the way Colorado did it. But just to go back to Hellebuyck, I think it was more on him than anything. I think he must have lost his confidence somewhere there in that series. And that's the thing. I mean, it's not a historically great season, but it's pretty damn good. And I go back to my first year in Montreal was the year that Carey Price won the Hart Trophy. And there's a lot of similarities there. I mean, he cleans up a lot of messes, although this Jets team was better defensively than that Canadiens team. He's a guy that whenever you hear him speak or speak to him, he exudes confidence, and not in an arrogant way. It's just who he is. So, but I think every Jets fan is waiting to see what happens if he gives up a bad goal in that first game. Where does it go from there? Because then a whole year of thinking about it comes kind of pushing down on you. And I think when we look at the Jets anyway as a whole, people are saying, yeah, okay, this is the regular season, but let's get to 2 or through round 1 and we'll reset. But I'm fascinated to see how he plays in the playoffs. I think he should be great because he's got the track record in the last few regular seasons, but we know the playoffs can be a different animal.
Just to further on Hellebuyck there, did his performance in the gold medal game in the Four Nations, did that start to spark up those doubts again amongst the fan base or no?
I don't think so. I didn't see anything about that. And, and I'm not saying you're suggesting this, but you couldn't put it on him. I mean, he's to the point where if he gives up more than a goal a game, you're like, oh, okay. If he gives up 2, you're thinking, okay, it's an average night, but his goals against is under 2. Like here's another thing about him. And I have to, our graphics person, John Matheson, our statistician, I'm going to work up a graphic about this. I think he's missed 1 game due to injury in his career. So you talk about his great numbers, and maybe you can overlook the fact that he just doesn't get hurt. He wants to play every night. I think he's the best goalies do. What the best number is for games played in the season, I don't know, but he is something else.
Dan, what's the best way to describe Nino Niederreiter, Adam Lowry, and Mason Appleton?
Boy, there's a good question. Physically, we'll say physically responsible, I guess, if I can mash those two together. They played together so long, Pierre, and I was talking about those guys to someone else today, that each knows where the other is. And you know what? It's Adam. Sorry, Nino's kind of going on a goalless streak right now, but you can't really tell by the way he's playing. It's not that he's playing poorly; it's just the way he is. But they're so familiar. And Appleton, of course, is on the right side. They can deliver a puck, and somebody's going to be there almost every time. So it's such a pivotal line for them. It's been an identity line for the Jets for the last couple of years. And if I can even push that further, to me, it's part of what the Jets do. They have a lot of core players who've been there a really long time, and they don't, when two games go poorly offensively, they don't throw the lines in the blender. And that was Rick Bowness too. He didn't do that very often. And Scott Arniel's the same. He trusts these trios, I guess, and I think it helps them build a lot of familiarity and a lot of success. So they look after defensive things first. I think Adams may be a little better offensively than most might think. I will say this, with Tanev coming, I think Appleton might feel a little bit of heat. It's not to say that line can never be broken up, but now there's a little more depth, a little more quality on the wings. So you could push Tanev up on that third line right wing if you had to, or Iafallo, and move things around. So there's some options there anyway.
Dan, what's been your take on the progression of Cole Perfetti this year?
Well, we asked Scott Arniel that a couple of weeks ago, and he said mostly it's been between the years. And he said, I don't mean that in a bad way, certainly not intelligence, because he has terrific hockey IQ, but just probably not getting down on himself so much when things aren't going the way that he would like. And I think that's pretty common among young players. And Cole's still a young guy. I think he's turned 23 on New Year's Day.
Young.
And so we're seeing that he's actually, the last few games, he's really created a lot of scoring chances, and he's getting his nose dirtier. There's no way around it. He's where before maybe he shied away from getting to the front of the net. Now he'll go in and take his licks, take his whacks, gets to the corner a little bit more. That's never going to be absolutely who he is. He's very creative, but there's another guy that when we get to the playoffs, you want to see, will he continue to push and get his nose dirty when that's the toughest time of the season? But we are seeing strides, and you can see why they picked him where they did. I mean, he's really good with the puck, great anticipation. He's not blazingly fast. His lateral movement is good and that sort of thing. I just think it's the normal maturation of a pretty good player.
He is so good on the power play, Jimmy, and Dan knows exactly what I'm talking about. You could put him on the half boards. You can put him on the icing line. You could put him in the bumper. This guy is a magician, and I love what Dan's answer was, because he's not super fast. I coached the kid when he was young. He's not super fast. He doesn't have great all he does is his brain functions real quick. He reads the play. I love that answer, Dan. I thought that was awesome.
It sounded a lot like what you said, Pierre, to me in the beginning of the year. I asked you for a scouting report.
No, but that's what I said. I love Dan's answer. We didn't rehearse that. That was an awesome answer, in my opinion. Anyways, I thought it was great. Hey, Dan, I know the market pretty well. I coached a lot of games. I've been in the market a lot. Are people starting to feel, you know what, we better get this done, or we might lose our team again? Is there any thought of that? Do people talk about that?
Not that I've heard. I mean, it was more last year than anything. And maybe I've said this before. I mean, they're in first place, or if they're not, they're just percentage points behind Washington. I guess they probably are now because they won last night, whatever. But if this team was having a Blackhawks like season or whatever, somebody further down in the standings, I wonder what the attendance would be night in and night out. So I think we'll see over the course of the next couple of years. I know they're really working hard to change things a little bit and try and make it more attractive to come to games. The economy is another thing, and we've talked about this before. They have their challenges, but I don't really hear it much. But if they fell off the face of the earth the next couple of years, then maybe that would be a bigger concern. But that's another thing too. They're very consistent when it comes to regular seasons.
I agree with that too. I
mean, it's a small building, we know that, but you'd like to see it filled every night. Maybe gradually we're getting toward that.
Jimmy, one more thing. Dan, I don't want to ask you pure numbers.
That's okay.
Do you get to see the ratings for your regional shows?
You know what? I don't. I would love to. I know our producer, Kevin Pratt, had told me roughly.
Tell KP I said hi, by the way.
I will, Pierre. He just turned 50 the other day, which I can't believe. So he is older than dirt. He's younger than me and younger than all of us, probably. But I don't know about you, Jimmy. I'm not sure how old you are, but you're in there somewhere.
50. Just
There you
turned
go.
50 in November. Yep.
Hellebuyck. Well, happy birthday. So
Thank
I don't know exactly what they are. I would like to for a couple of reasons. When we do both home and road games, we have a half-hour pregame show. So unlike the other TSN markets, I guess Ottawa and Montreal and Toronto, we don't have a panel. So when we're on the road, I host the pregame, host the show, call the game, and I wonder. I'm thinking, are the numbers good enough for the pregame to make that worthwhile? I guess it probably is, but I know our coverage area is northwestern Ontario and it goes into Nunavut. It goes through Manitoba into Saskatchewan. So, it's not a densely populated area, but I think they're actually pretty good.
I bet they are. That's why I was wondering, because I would be willing to bet per capita you might have some of the better ratings outside of Leafland of all the Canadian teams. I mean that. I think you could.
Stretches, yeah.
I think KP has said something about that. So hopefully, I mean, a fellow needs to keep his job. So we
You
don't
just
get
tell
this
KP to
situation.
stay out. You tell KP to stay out of the squash court and stop smoking. He'll
I
know.
will. I will. I'll do that.
Hey, Dan, listen, before we let you go, I know I think it was one year I got to see you over at Hurley's for their
Yes.
St. Patrick's thing one year with Mitch Mellon. What do they do in Winnipeg? What's the St. Patrick's celebration like out there?
I think it's pretty muted. Maybe I should start my own big party and have everybody over to the building here. It's certainly not like Montreal if they do, but I think anybody with any sense, anybody with any links to Ireland has to get drunk, right? You have to have a good time. But I remember my first year calling Canadians games. I went to Hurley's on St. Patrick's Day, and I thought this is the best thing ever. Pat Hickey was there. Mitch was doing the show live. I'm sure Pierre, you were there.
I was
audio
there.
wise, if you weren't there physically, but that's something. And I never realized in Montreal how much of an Irish community or population there had been over the years. Yeah.
One of the largest parades in the world for St. Patrick's, so they do a great
Right
job.
on.
But listen, always a pleasure having you.
Man, this was so good, man. You're the voice of reason out there. You're so good at your job. Your pipes are
thank you.
awesome. Your knowledge is awesome.
Yep.
I listen to all your most of your shows. Your energy is so huge for that team. You are a huge thing for them. You keep doing it. You're doing awesome.
That means a lot, Pierre. And before we go, I'll tell you guys, I got to interview Sam Rosen last night as he made his last move through
Sammy,
Winnipeg.
last year.
Oh my, what a gentleman. I mean, you know better than me. You've known him longer than I have, but I thought I was nervous when I interviewed him, and I thought, okay, those are the moments where I think this is pretty damn cool. I get to interview and talk to Sam Rosen. So thank you for the kind words, guys.
He didn't get to use his line though, Dan. It's a power play goal.
I actually, if you go back and find the broadcast when Velarde scored, I dropped it in there. I stole it from him. Just a little homage. Yeah.
Nice. Good job,
There
Dan.
you go. I didn't do it as well.
I was watching Dano.
Thanks, guys.
I'll say for everyone watching in the States right now, when you have that option to choose the Jets broadcast of their opponent, choose the
take
one.
the Jets.
You're in for a treat. There you go.
Thanks a lot, boys. I appreciate it.
All right. Dan Robertson join us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. He's one of the good ones, Pierre.
No, Jimmy, his pipes are. He reminds me of Chuck Caton.
Yep.
His pipes are like Chuck Caton, and Chuck is considered one of the best broadcasters, play-by-play guy in the last 40 years in the league. He's really good, Hall of Famer. Dan's pipes are good. His knowledge base of the team is phenomenal, and he plays it straight.
Yep.
He plays it right down the middle.
He's
Right
very
down
humble.
the middle.
That's
He plays
what I
it
love
straight. I really enjoy his broadcast.
Yeah. It was a pleasure getting to know him during my time in Montreal. He's definitely a great guy, and he knows the game so well. It's been great seeing how far he's come. So good for him. Definitely, like I said, check out the Jets broadcast when you have that choice on ESPN Plus in the States. And I don't know how else you can get it up in Canada, obviously on TSN somehow, but good stuff there. Pierre, one thing I forgot to ask him too, and I'll just ask you, do you have Arneal in your top 3 for Jack Adams right now?
I do.
Me too.
I'm not going to tell you who I don't get to vote on it. I used to. Yeah. I have a couple guys that have dropped out in my eyes.
Yeah.
And
I've had guys go in and out all season.
And he's one of the guys that's dropped in.
Yep. I'm with you on that. And the other thing,
I know Bilesman's running the power play, and this is more for young coaches out there because I know a lot of major junior coaches watch this show. So I'm just telling you guys right now, and ladies, by the way, because it works in women's hockey too. Their entries are probably the best entries in the league, and their set formations off face-offs on the power play are as good or better than anybody.
Yeah.
Their power play is a weapon.
Yeah.
It is really, really tough. And as somebody that took a lot of pride in defending against good power plays, we had some really different schemes, and I'm watching that saying, okay, what would you do here? And so you got to think about theirs. Some of them it's meat and potatoes. You can figure it out fast. Theirs is different. There's a lot of subterfuge in their power plays, which is smart. It's really good.
And that's right. I had forgotten Davis Payne was there too. I totally forgot.
I worked with Davis. I like Davis. He did I tell you what, when I was in Ottawa, he had Shabbat on the point. He had Kachuk. He had Norris. He had Stutzla. Batherson. Power play was really good. He did a really good job with the assets that he was given. And that was really one for those young guys at that time. So that's 3 years ago. Davis did a really good job with them on the power play.
All right. Well, before we get into our Q&A and our sponsors here, Pierre, just quickly going back to that Bruins game there in that moment with Zadorov. Look, you and I were talking off the air. We get it. They've had a tough season here in Boston. The fans need some kind of optimism there.
Yeah.
So as they go down a stretch run, like these guys, a lot of these guys now are fighting for jobs to stick next year. There's a lot of opportunity open there. But when moments like this happen, what do you do as a coach or someone within that organization to still not, walk that line, don't get too high or too low and be fooled by moments like that?
No, you just keep practicing, just keep grinding, just keep getting better. I don't want to poo-poo a big moment for the fans. The fans clearly bought it and they loved it.
Yeah.
And it's against a guy that wears a black hat, for the opposition. Sam
them
Bennett.
up.
So I respect that a lot. So let me just put in perspective, okay? Really important to create perspective. Career plus minus for Nikita Zadorov is plus 27, okay? Career plus minus for Larry Robinson is 727, okay? Just hear me out. If you don't believe what's really important for a franchise, I'll tell you what to go watch. Go watch 1974 Philadelphia versus Montreal. Larry Robinson against Dave Schultz. And then if that's not enough, go watch 1976 Philadelphia versus Montreal. Larry Robinson versus the entire team, including Mario Tremblay helping him out. And go watch Larry Robinson break the boards with a clean hit, even though he got penalized on Gary Dornhofer, and watch him fight Dave Schultz again. So, let's just put this in perspective. The Zadorov stuff is not franchise changing. It's an energy jolt for, a couple days or till their next game. Right. What Larry Robinson did with his physicality was change the entire decade of hockey in the 1970s. Because as soon as it was over and the Canadiens swept the Flyers in the final 4-0 in 76, those guys were done. The Flyers were see you later, alligator. They were done.
That was the end of an era.
That was the end of it. And Larry did that. So let's just historical perspective matters if you're going to get all giddy about this stuff.
Because everyone's like, I told you, Pierre, this is no knock on Zadorov. I've told you, I think he's a great third pairing D man. He can bring some physicality, whatever. But, people are saying left and right, and I'm talking broadcasters, put the A on him next year. He's a leader now. This is part of your new leadership core. Let's pump the brakes and see how the rest of the season goes.
Maybe it's because I'm just old. But my reference points are historically relevant because I saw an era change. I knew the coach of the Philadelphia Flyers really well. And I still know the coach of the Montreal Canadiens in those days really well. If I had gone to Montreal as a GM, I was hiring Larry Robinson to come work for the team.
I remember you telling me. Yep.
There's the first guy I was going to hire. I'm just telling you. Yeah. I told them in the GM's meetings. I told them. Told ownership. So because it meant that much to me to see that. And I think it meant a lot to people in the NHL to see that too. The Flyers weren't exactly the most popular cats in town because most guys didn't want to play against them.
Yeah.
And so I think what Zadorov did requires a lot of courage and guts, but that's not a franchise-altering play.
Yeah.
That's not a decade-altering situation. Exactly. It's a euphoric moment that you better not overreact to.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you're going to have bigger problems down the road.
Exactly. I'm with you on that. All right, let's get to our sponsorship right now. TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. And, of course, our wonderful gambling partners, Betway. You can go there right now. You still can lose and be rewarded. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code right there in front of you if you're watching right now, or go to the details section and click on the link to create a new account and redeem your welcome offer. Again, it's only available for new customers. It is not available in Ontario. Terms and restrictions apply. You must be 18 plus. Please always bet responsibly. Let's go to the pick of the night.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, I went 1-1 last night. The aforementioned Florida Panthers lost to the Boston Bruins. I had them on the puck line, but I did get Montreal, who went in and actually won on the reverse puck line 4-2 over the Vancouver Canucks. I'm going to just get one game tonight, and I'm going to stick with those Canadians. I think they finish off the back-to-back with a win. They bring home 2 more points as they continue to push for a playoff spot tonight in Seattle. Give me the Montreal Canadiens. They are at plus 130 underdogs. That's good value right now for the way they played last night and the way, as we discussed earlier, Seattle's playing right now. Canadians plus 130 on the money line. Let's go to the Q&A. Paul Cormier, Pierre or Jimmy, can you guys explain how offer sheets work? Who can be dealt an offer? Does the player have to agree to getting an offer from another team? Pierre?
Well, the player doesn't agree. The agent does. The offer sheet's pretty simple. You get to a certain category in your career, and you're eligible for an offer sheet. And then it comes down to the compensation based on the price of the offer sheet. So it's a dollar value thing. You know, if it's a certain dollar value, it's a second round pick. If it's another dollar value, it's a third round pick. It's not really that complicated an equation. It's just years of service that lead to the ability to be offer sheeted.
Pierre, with the projected, notice what I'm doing there, salary cap going up, the projected salary cap rates, do you anticipate more offer sheets this coming off season?
There could be, just because what we've talked about before, and nobody wants to say it because it hurts business of coverage. The drafts are not super exceptional. They're good in the top 10. They're really good. And then it kind of dissipates. But it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be players that are going to make it. There are going to be a lot of guys that are going to make it.
Yep.
It's not as deep. So there could be, because teams are not – look at the trade deadline, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Look at how many teams, rather than trading players, they traded picks.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they do that? I haven't seen one person in the media ask, why were there so many picks that were being traded?
Yeah. Especially first rounders too.
Well, yeah, but people got asked why? Why are people so in love with moving first round picks all of a sudden?
Yeah, and
because something we've been saying since October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's true, and I think do you think too that the idea that the cap's going up has something to do with that as well, Pierre, with the draft picks?
I still haven't seen the cap go up. It's a dangerous game. I'm sure it will rise. I'm sure it will.
Yep.
I don't know if it's going to rise as much as everybody thinks.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Yep.
I hope it does.
Let's go to that next question. What do we got? Will Van Vagel, strong game last night by Michael Pizzetter. Has he earned himself more ice time? Why does a team keep someone if they are going to play 20 games or under, or is he just happy to be in the NHL?
They keep him because he's cap friendly, number one. Number two, he doesn't cause any problems around the team. Number three, he's a hard worker. He's a popular teammate, so he's not causing any problems. He's not going, complaining to the coaches or to the management about his situation. He's a good soldier. That's why character matters. That's why we call our show the Eye Test. Character matters a lot, and he's got a wealth of character. He played well last night. He was responsible. He didn't take penalties.
Yep.
He was physical when he had to be. He had a lot of energy in his legs. So, no, he was good last night, but that's kind of what he has to be. He's not going to come in and score 20 goals. That's just not going to be his thing.
That's it. He's a grinder. All right, next question. Bill Van Vagel again. Have either of you heard about if the Habs have ever considered bringing Carey Price into the fold as a goalie coach, minor league goalie guru, or even as a scout?
I would be not. Yeah,
I wouldn't
I
be
haven't, but I would just tell you this right now. Just because you were a really good goalie doesn't mean you're going to be a really good goalie coach. Just because you were an elite player doesn't mean you're going to be an elite coach. Probably the best player that's ever been a great coach is Jacques Lemaire. And probably the second best player that was ever a great coach is Larry Robertson. So you can't equate the two. And coaching is when you've made, and this is not to be mean, like Carey's, I'm a friend of his, like I really like him a lot. When you make as much money as these guys do, I hope people understand, like, coaching's a commitment. It's got to be in your blood. It's not a very healthy business.
Yeah.
You know, it's late nights, it's bad food, it's tons of black coffee, it's a lot of stuff that, you know, can take years off your life.
Yeah.
You know,
go ahead.
I don't know how many. It's like what I say about scouting. I don't know how many old players want to go scouting.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I broke into the business, everybody that scouted, everybody was a former player because they had to. They didn't have enough money. Because it's not because they blew it. It's because they didn't make enough.
Yep.
And you learn. I'm telling you, I'd sit in cars on the prairies with all these legendary people. And you just sit there. If you were smart, you just sit there, shut up, and listen. And they would talk about different ways to see how tall a player truly is. They talk about guys and the length of their sticks. They talk about boards in different rinks in the NHL and how they can affect the outcome of games. There were so many things. The importance of character. How do you measure toughness? All these different things. Yep. And I don't see as many former players scouting now.
No.
Especially these guys.
Yeah. And I think Pierre, too, just from afar and everything I read and I see when he gets interviewed, he seems pretty happy to be able to really dedicate his time to his family right now. Like I see it here with Patrice Bergeron. He's so happy just not having to have that commitment every day of being at the rink. And, you know, he goes to the rink with his kids. But I just, right now, I wouldn't think Carey would be interested. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for him, but he just seems like he's enjoying life right now and see what happens down the road. But I'm with Pierre. If you look at all the good coaches, the good scouts, it's usually kind of the bottom six forwards, or the bottom pairing D-men, right? It's the guys that, as Pierre said, are the eye test people. So, and that's why they become good scouts. Yeah,
like I'll use Laviolette as an example. He's a Stanley Cup winning coach. He was a Division III player at Westfield State College.
Yeah, that's a great example.
That's what he was. Yeah. Like, he's not going to run away from that. That's what he was. He got a break. He got a break because he knew a guy, and he ended up getting drafted by the Rangers, and he made the Olympic team in '88. Good for him.
Yeah.
But NHL superstar? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
But a really good coach. A really good coach.
Great coach. He's still going. All right, next question. Posting it on 1:30. Habs are up 3-0 last night versus Canucks and almost blew it in the end. Won 4-2 with Matheson empty net. How do they learn from this and prevent going forward?
No, first of all, let's the Ronak goal.
I didn't see the end of the game.
I worked the game. I did the post game with Tony Marinaro for the Sick Podcast and Tony's show, and we will do that the rest of the way on the weeknights. And all I'll tell you is this. The Ronak goal's posting in through a screen. Like, okay, I get it. And then the next one's a power play goal, same side of the net. And it goes high blocker through a screen. Like, there's nothing you can learn from. Don't take a penalty at that time of the game. But posting in, it's still, the other guys get paid too. I didn't think the Canadians panicked in that situation. I thought the Canadians played really well. And the Matheson, goal to put the ice on the game was great. Their top line, Montreal's top line was so good. Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield, they were off the charts good. They were off the charts good.
Yeah. Suzuki's just been insane since the Four Nations. All right, next question. Bill Van Vagel. Gentlemen, who was the best referee to converse with on and off the ice? Someone who could both give and take it, but you respect it either way and want to have a wobbly pop afterwards. Pierre?
Well, I got a bunch of them. I mean, because I go back to an older era where a lot of the older guys didn't wear helmets, but I always got along really well with Kerry Frazier. Always got along with Danny Marawelli. I told Billy McCreary many times, and Billy still works for the league. I said, Billy, if I get a GM's job, I'm hiring you. And I told him what the job description would be. And he's like, wow, I never thought of that. That'd be really cool. So a lot of them, I had a really, outside of one who I had a really big problem with, I liked most of the referees. The linesmen were all, in my opinion, the linesmen were all saints. Brian Murphy, off the charts. I think one of the best linesmen ever.
Kevin Collins?
Oh, Kevin was great. Kevin, so tough, such a
ace.
gentleman, always well dressed, always carried himself so well in public. We used to try, like, people don't realize NHL players and coaches back then, we weren't chartering.
No.
Like, we were flying commercial. No, a lot of times those guys were on the same planes as us. So we always develop a little bit of a friendship. Sometimes maybe a little acrimonious too, but there were some, I mean, I don't want to miss any, but there were a lot of really, like, I have so much respect. I think I told you this, Jimmy. When I was in the pod with Kenny Albert for 2.5 months in Edmonton, we were both in the same hotel with the officials. And, if you made the cut as an official, you stayed longer. So we got down to the last, 2 weeks, and maybe we had started with, let's say, 20 guys. We were down to maybe 8.
Wow.
And it was awesome. Like, we would always be in the gym at the same time, go for breakfast at the same time. I just had so much respect. Like, people don't realize how hard those guys train.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They train hard, man.
Yeah.
Like, they train really hard. I think you just use Brian Murphy as an example. Just use him as an example. And I'm going to bring it up because he was a friend of mine, and he really helped me when I was a young coach, is John D'Amico, the late John D'Amico, Hall of Famer.
I met him 3 times. He's great.
John taught me so much about how to interact with the officials, how to maintain bench decorum, even though when you were mad, because one time I got really mad at a neutral site game in Saskatoon, actually. We were playing Winnipeg. Ironic that Dan would be on today with us. And we got hosed by the official. And I was really upset. And, John grabbed me probably a week later and said, hey, I heard you had a tough time in Saskatoon. I said, oh, yeah. He said, why don't we sit down? And had a cup of coffee, and he was good. And to this day, it still resonates with me.
Wow.
Yeah. He was as tough. Hey, Jimmy, if you don't, for the younger people out there, if you don't believe me, go watch the Pierre Bouchard, Stan Jonathan fight from the old Garden. Both guys, I don't think Jonathan was bleeding, but Bouchard was bleeding. But Johnny D'Amico, he broke up the fight. He's covered in blood.
Oh,
He's
wow.
just covered in blood. It's unbelievable how tough this guy was.
I don't envy them. I mean, I'm even thinking last night there when they had 2 officials were holding down Zadorov, and Bennett's just pounding away, and they're right in the middle. I mean, they're in the line of fire. And one thing too, Pierre, I did this once too, and it was amazing. You don't realize it when you're watching a game because it just happens so fast. But if you try to focus in on all the times that a ref has to get out of the way, whether it's on the pucks, player,
bodies,
and you're like, whoa, these guys are acrobatic. Like, it's pretty amazing.
Well, Don Van Massenhoven, here's another one for young people out there. He was doing a game, New Jersey versus Florida. And the goalie, I think it might have been Trevor Kidd, makes a save for Florida, and the puck deflects into the corner, and it's launched, Jimmy. It is launched. And Van Mass got hit right in the face with the puck. And I think it fractured his skull. He dropped like a ton of bricks. And he would basically, I think that ended his on-ice career. I mean, he did it a little bit longer, but not much. But he was a great supervisor. To show you how tough these guys are, I called him up the next day. I felt so bad for him. He's a huge CFL football fan. I think he's a Hamilton Tiger Cats guy. I'm a Montreal Alouettes guy. So I called him up. He's in the hospital. And I was busting his chops about the CFL. And I think he wanted to say, you idiot, do you know that I'm in a hospital? And I was like, Dan, I kind of know you're in a hospital, but I just want to cheer you up. Thinking you're a great guy. And I'm glad the Alouettes are winning and the Tiger Cats are losing.
That's good stuff. All right. Next question. What do we got? David Robinson, what's up, Dave? How is it possible that Boquist, Greer, and Thomas Nosek couldn't stick in the bottom six with the Bruins, but now make up 50% of the bottom six of a more talented team? It's just situational, right? It's the pieces fit.
But don't you think that's a great question by David?
Question. I mean, the real reason is roster construction. And if
asset management,
right, they fall into their right place.
Asset management is a big part of this thing.
Go
and if you
watch Charlie Cole for the rest of the season, for all those Bruins fans that were bashing him all year, then he lost it. Just keep an eye on him.
Asset management matters a ton when you're evaluating your team.
Great question by Dave.
It's really good. Really good question.
I actually saw AJ Greer yesterday before Marchand spoke, caught up with him. He seems pretty happy. Like he's definitely found a good spot there.
Pretty amazing. Like AJ Greer is a kid from Quebec that played at BU, and nobody really even knows that.
No. He's a
tough,
hustler.
He's a tough
really
kid.
hardworking. He's tough. Yeah,
he's a tough kid.
All right, next question. Randy Workman. Vancouver is clearly better than Calgary. How does coaching staff wake up the players?
Good question, Randy.
We were talking about this today, Randy. You must be a mind reader.
Yeah, we talked about it. I don't know. Go look at the chart, the hit chart from last night. Montreal out hit Vancouver in Vancouver. And I know Rick Tocchet said all the right things. And again, I'm not going to make excuses, but I can't think that he was happy about that.
He must be at his wit's end with what's gone on there. It's not, I don't know. It's inexplainable. I have no idea how it happened. But all right, next question. David Robinson again. Has Yokihiro reached his ceiling? Can he develop more as a D-man at 25 years old? I think he can.
I think he can too. No, I think he can. I think he got rushed into the league in a tough spot. And no, I think he can. I do. I think he can. That's another good question by Dave. David's clearly watching games.
Yep.
Which is
good.
I
like the way he's looking at depth players as well.
That's good.
All right, next question. Randy Workman, and by the way, David's over in Portugal too, so credit to him for watching the games.
Good.
Can Valimaki be an NHL D-man again? Oh, that's right. He's having surgery.
Yeah, you know what, Randy? I don't
know enough about it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't want to shuck your question, but I just don't know enough about what he's, what's going on with the surgery. I just don't know.
All right, next question. Ethan Russell, who wins the Dallas versus Colorado series if it happens? I think it's up to Ottinger. He's got to come up big. He's another one like Hellebuyck.
Well, he's got to come up big, but they need Miro Heiskanen back.
They need Miro Heiskanen back. And I don't know, Pierre, if you disagree with me, but if I'm looking up the middle, I give the edge to Colorado at the center position.
Oh, yes, you do.
For that deadline.
Because you're smart.
Thank you.
Yes, you do.
Sometimes I am. Next question. Bill Van Vagel. If Russia is still banned by the IHF, has the NHL discussed ways to have their players on a best-on-best tournament, or is it not possible? Perhaps a generic international team with others unrepresented? No, they still need to have that lifted. And we'll see.
I'm still optimistic they'll find a way to get this all sorted out.
We'll see. Next question. Ethan Russell, if you're a Washington, who are you hoping you don't play? The Senators or the Blue Jackets? I think both teams could knock out the Caps.
I wouldn't want to play Ottawa. And here's the reason why. I worked in that market. They haven't had playoffs in a long time. That's people don't realize how proud a hockey market. It's not just for pro hockey, it's for women's hockey, it's for major junior hockey, it's for midget hockey, it's for youth hockey. It's amazingly passionate hockey community. The people there I love the people there. They're salt of the earth. They're phenomenal people in Ottawa. It would be hard to play Ottawa in a series, especially let's just say you're Washington, you lose game 1 or 2, and you got to go up to Canada to play 3 and 4. Not sure that would be a fun exercise. No. As bad as it is to have that cannon going off in Columbus, I don't think it's going to be the same as what would be in Ottawa. I just don't.
I'm with you on that, Pierre, but I think Columbus could be tough as well. I think that looking at that 8th seed, I think the series might go a little longer than people think heading in. I'm not saying Washington will get upset.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. The one thing I'd say, I know they got Tommy Wilson in Washington, but they've won the cup. Those guys have been through it. A lot of them. 2018 they won the cup. They haven't been a team that hasn't had playoffs. They made the playoffs last year. That Brady Tkachuk, you wind that guy up for a playoff series, buckle up, man.
Look
Just
at how
telling
excited he got for the Four Nations. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
He's
saw him a
waiting.
lot. I helped him negotiate his contract. I'm just telling you that he's a different cat in a good way, not a bad way.
All right, next question. Gabriel Lamb, should the Sabres hire Ken Holland for the front office? I'm getting sick of seeing them missing the playoffs.
Gabriel, they should hire Ray Shero.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, look, I don't have anything against Kevin Adams. He can keep his job, but they need somebody above him.
Exactly.
They need somebody above him.
Yep. And I think the same could be said in Carolina. All right, next question. Ethan Russell, going to be a great game on TNT tonight. If the Wings can't get it, the Wings are playing Buffalo, by the way. If the Wings can't get a point, are they out of the chase? Yeah, I think it's, as Pierre likes to say, see you later, alligator.
So Ethan's not going to go watch UMass play UVM?
I'm pretty sure he's going to have the TNT on record on DVR, knowing Ethan. And go UMass, by the way. Good luck to Coach Carvel. All right, next question. Claire Capoletti. Is Vinny LeCavier doing anything important for the Habs, in your opinion? Yeah.
He's a sounding board. So those guys don't need any extra scrutiny with the media. They're a sounding board. They're an experienced voice. You know, you can see something within a player's character, or maybe a flaw that he might have, or maybe a strength that he has that maybe is going unrecognized. But all those guys are important. There's a level of trust that you build up with your inner sanctum, with the people that you have around you. So, no, I do think those guys are important. You know, again, those Pittsburgh teams that won, they're not winning without Scotty providing intel to Craig Patrick. I'll tell you that right now. There's no possible way. I don't care how good the players were.
The more brain trust around you, the better off you are. All right, next question. Ethan Russell, any tips into scouting recruiting?
Yeah, write lots of letters. Hope that somebody, likes your letter and it resonates with them. And once you get a job, go deep. Keep digging. Work as hard as you can. Don't run with the herd.
Yep.
Don't run with the herd. Form your own opinions. When you go to meetings, be strong with your opinion. The guys are going to challenge you. Challenge them right back. Like, scouting's not for the faint of heart. It's a hard job. It's a really hard job, and it's a fun. I love scouting. I still do.
Don't rely on just video, right, Pierre?
Yeah. You got to get out there. Go to practices. Befriend the trainers of all these different teams. Know different people that are away from the team that are still part of the team, though. There's so many things there's so many little tricks of the trade and scouting. It's a fascinating business. I've always loved it.
All right, next question. Randy Workman, Henry Muse is going to NCAA. Yeah. Is that a good choice?
It is. So his father, Henry, they're a very successful family in the Ottawa Valley. They own car dealerships and been amazingly successful. This young man you're talking about played for the Ottawa 67s. His father was a great player at Northeastern University. He was Harry Muse was a father's name. He was a really, really good player back in the early 80s at Northeastern. So I'm not surprised that the young man's going the college route. That's because these new rules. Yeah. The new rules are great for players at all levels, whether they're major, junior, or college. It's great for all players.
All right, next question. Ethan Russell, what is Brock Besser worth in free agency?
Good question. I'm going to say between 6 and 7.5 million. He probably wants more than that, but I think the numbers are starting to go down rather than go up, so that's why. I'd have a little trepidation. I'm a big Brock Besser fan as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous person. And a good hockey player.
I wonder if he could end up in his home state, Pierre. I don't know if they have room.
He could. I just don't know if that's where they want to go at this point with their development.
They've got guys coming, right?
Yeah, they got other guys coming. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, next question. McGinnis picks. What's up, Andy? Who's the depth piece the Habs need to step up the most offensively down the stretch in order to be successful?
Josh Anderson. I'm going to say Josh. Say Joshy because he's played so well this year in different situations. But if as a depth player, if he could step up a little more offensively, that'd be huge for them. Evans has had a phenomenal year. I think everybody knows that. Heineman, I think, could do a little bit more offensively. He had some good chances last night. Armia's Armia. That's what he is. You don't want to get him out of what he's doing right now. So no, that would, unless you're going to ask me about Patrick Laine.
Mm.
You know, do you consider him a depth player? Or do you consider him a power play specialist? I don't know.
Yep.
They need him back in the lineup. They need him scoring goals 5-on-5.
All right, next question. Ethan Russell, if you can name them, who are some of the top college free agents who can help a playoff
We're not
team?
talking about that. We've said that right from the
Yeah,
beginning.
we won't name them.
On that road.
There's some coming. Next question. Energize. Hope the league is starting to notice how good Jake Sanderson really is. A true number one defenseman. And do you guys see a future Norris winner in him? Pierre, you know him much better than me.
I do see him as a potential Norris Trophy winner. He's an elite skater. He's an amazing defender. He's a good first pass defenseman. I see some Scott Niedermayer in him. I see some Brian Leach in him. Those are amazing players, obviously. He's not as good as either player yet, but there's some characteristics in him that are really similar. His father was a very good NHL player, so the bloodline is really good for that. And this is a coachable player that I could see him winning a Norris Trophy. I could.
All right. Next question. Ethan Russell, if the Bruins don't keep Sacco, who should they bring in? College coach, veteran, maybe Chris Kelly. Also, I can't go to the UMass game. Got a big men's league playoff game. That's what DVR is for. There you go.
I don't think Chris Kelly will be named coach if they don't keep Sacco. And I like Chris a lot. Chris is a really good hockey guy.
I like both guys, but I don't
really,
think
really good hockey guy. I think they might go the college route if they bring in another coach. And I'm not saying Joe Sacco is getting fired because I don't know that.
Nope, we don't
but
know.
if you're playing a hypothetical with me and saying if they have a coaching opening, I think they go the college route.
All right, next question. Gabriel Lamb, should Winnipeg market itself more south of the border, like North Dakota, for example?
But they do though.
They do. I was just
They
gonna say
do.
that.
They're more of a regional team. Mark Chipman's a friend and somebody that I really respect a lot. I don't know Mr. Thompson at all, his co-owner, and probably the number one owner there. But I've known Mark a long time, and I really respect him. He played football at North Dakota State too, by the way. So I'm just trying to do the math here. They do Northwestern Ontario. They do all of Manitoba. They do Iqaluit and Nunavut. They do northern Minnesota. They do all of North Dakota, and they do eastern. They do eastern Saskatchewan. And so, they're a regional team.
Yeah,
they are. They're a region. They're not a city team, even though Winnipeg's a city.
Yep.
They're a regional team. So they've worked hard at it. They've worked really hard at it, Gabriel.
All right. I think that's it. That's all we got left here right now. Or was one more question there from Dave. I think we could take it. What are the chances Sacco remains head coach? Well, we just said we don't know yet. Or does he go elsewhere? He's been in a tough spot all year.
Yeah,
That's a question I was wondering most about. If there is a change, he's been an assistant for so long there in Boston, Pierre. He gets this interim head coach job. Does he take a break? Maybe.
I don't think so. I'm really good friends with Jack Capuano. Jack had a really good run with the Islanders. Really good run.
Yep.
And then DJ Smith brought him to Ottawa, and I can tell you, one of the guys that really, and I talked to all the coaches there. They were a really good staff. DJ Smith had such a good group of guys, whether it was Jack. Jack just got right back in the fray. He got fired in Ottawa and he went right to Minnesota, and he had a bunch of other jobs, a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So I think when it's inside of you,
yeah,
you go do it. I mean, Barry Smith and I.
Joe knows a lot of people in the game. Like, he's well respected.
Yeah, I mean, he's coached a lot of different places. Yeah. People forget he was a real good player at Boston University. He was a good pro player. He played drafted by Toronto. Jack Gardner drafted Joe. I'll never forget Jack. I'd see him in the rink all the time. Jack was a hard-working, industrious guy. He drafted him in Toronto. Joe ended up going to Anaheim when Jack Farrar was there. I mean, it was really cool. Joe was a good player. He was playing when I was coaching.
Yeah.
So I know him pretty well. I love it. I'll tell you one thing. His brother David was a hell of a player. He's just a bit undersized. He didn't have Joe's size.
I used to watch those two come into Arlington and light up Arlington High with, as we say around where we're from, where you're staying right now, Medfa. That's what they call it, Medford, Mass. Medfa. That's how they say it in Boston. So anyhow, great show. We appreciate Dan Robinson joining us here today. Thanks to Shane up in Montreal working the boards. Thanks to all of you for your great questions. Thanks to all the other listeners and viewers. We appreciate your support. Tomorrow we will have Jeff Marek joining us here on the Eye Test. Looking forward to talking to our good friend Jeff. But until then, enjoy the hockey tonight. And this has been another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.